Hi, Leonard. Anybody hear me? Anybody out there? And actually, we were just talking to Test. All right, there you go. Okay, we'll call the annual Capital Facilities Corporation meeting to order. Everybody's here except for Mr. Nava. At this time, is there any public comments about anything on the agenda for the Capital Facilities meeting only? Okay. Then first item on the agenda is to elect the board of directors for that group. I would at this moment would like to nominate Mr. Joe Nava, even though he's not here. I'll make sure that I think we need to nominate him.
Second.
Okay, that's first and second. Okay. Any others? All right. This is a voice vote, so we'll start with Mr. Neely.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Nominations for vice president. I will nominate Mr. Ron Freitas.
Second.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. Voice vote again.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And for secretary, nominations for secretary.
I would nominate Mrs. Susan McFarland.
Okay.
Second.
And that's been first and seconded. Okay, voice vote.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Alright. And we also need to have our chief financial officer. I nominate Mr. Leonard Kahn.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, concerns? Okay, voice vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Mr. Kahn was unanimously accepted. Mr. Kahn, you still on the phone?
I am. Yes.
Okay. Do you have a quick report for us?
It's very quick. Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice President Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. I won't review this in depth, but these are the two outstanding certificates of deposit. I'd be happy to answer any questions about them.
Any questions? Comments from the public? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kahn. At this point, then, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Not you guys. That was just this meeting. You can't stay there.
All right, calling to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Lodi Unified. Reports out from closed session. In personnel matters, George Neely motioned and Mr. Porter second, and the board approved the appointment of Tammy Seuss as high school assistant principal at a location to be determined with an effective date to be determined by the vote of 6, 0, and 1 absent. Also in personnel matters, Mrs. McFarland motioned and Mr. Neely second, and the board approved the appointment of Annette Galindo as Director 3 Transportation Department, effective with a date to be determined by the following vote of 6 in favor, no opposed, and 1 absent. Also in closed session, the board acted to dismiss a school readiness and preschool specialist. Unanimous, with 1 absent. And that is all there is to report from closed session.
Vice President, we forgot the roll call. I mean, the pledge of allegiance.
I have to, okay, first we have to do attendance. Is that okay?
Okay, that's it. Okay.
And we have 6 board members that are present and 1 that is absent, that is Mr. Nava. And if you receive an email from Mr. Nava requesting that you provide his nephew with a Nordstrom card, his nephew does not need a Nordstrom card, so. Scam. So, and we also are joined by 2 of our finest and favorite student representatives. We have Atia Edwards from Toki High. Welcome, Atia. And we have Daniel Luderman from Bear Creek High. Welcome, Daniel. Let's your reports here today. And Atia, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tia. Very nice. Over the Christmas break, there were 2 losses to the Lodi Unified family, and we would like to respectfully ask for a moment of silence. On December 15th at age 8, Madeline Grisby, a 3rd grader at Reese Elementary School, passed away after a valiant fight. Her parents are Trina Bessie and Jonathan Grisby. Jonathan is a Lodi Unified locksmith in the Maintenance and Operations Department. This is obviously a very tragic loss. Also, on December 25th, Nancy Thompson passed away. Nancy had a long career as a teacher for Lodi Unified. It spanned over 36 years. Not only was she a beloved teacher, but she was the daughter of a teacher and the sister of our own board member, Mr. Heberly. She served as, her mother served with the district from 1988 and from 1990 to 94. This was a very tragic loss. Mr. Heberly, would you like to add any comments?
No, thank you. I'll just appreciate the recognition. Thank you very much.
Speaking with Mr. Heberly, he pointed out how well loved his sister was and all of her assignments. And we're very fortunate to know her, and Lodi, again, is very sorry for this loss. So please join me in a brief moment of silence and respect for these 2 losses that we had and their families. Thank you. Dr. Washer, there is a proclamation for this month.
There is.
What could that be?
It could be for you.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr.
Me?
Vice President, members of the board. This is Board Appreciation Month, so we have a proclamation that I'd like to share with you and the community to acknowledge that. Whereas the mission of public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to a democratic society in an ever-changing world. And whereas local school board members are committed to the community and believe that all children can be successful learners. And whereas local school board members work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision for the district. And whereas local school board members are responsible for ensuring the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school system. And whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Nichols Washer, Superintendent of Lodi Unified School District, on behalf of the district, do hereby declare my appreciation to the members of the Lodi Unified School Board and proclaim the month of January 2020 as School Board Recognition Month in Lodi Unified School District. Further, I urge my fellow Lodi Unified School District staff members and local citizens to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of our board members.
Thank you, that's very, very nice.
And I just want to add that as school board members, when you go to CSBA, you have come back and shared what you have learned from other districts. What I learn when I go to CSBA is how much I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
And that's you. Well, thank you very, very much. This is very much unexpected, and it actually shows what a great superintendent we had, that she actually figured out that this was School Board Appreciation Month. If we were left in charge of it, obviously, we never would have figured it out. But thank you, Dr. Washer, and thank you for the board members and their commitment. This proclamation just touches on everything that every member of this board does, and they also do so much more. And it's nice to be recognized for it, because I know I greatly appreciate serving with each and every one of them. So thank you very much. And then, Dr. Washer, the floor is also yours for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. A few things to share with you. Just want to thank our community, our board, everyone who attended the Got Kids Crab Feed this past Saturday evening. It was a fantastic event. Hot crab served hot, fresh. Everybody had a great time. I want to recognize the schools that donated to the silent auction, went above and beyond to make this a special event. So there's a list of the schools who donated a basket or an item to the silent auction to help us bring in money for our foundation. Don't have the numbers yet, but it's got to be big because it was a great event. There were lots of folks there having a good time. I also want to thank our employee groups, LPPA, LEA, administrators. We had a very good showing there, and they also provided support for the event as well. So I want to thank everybody for the group effort. It was a fantastic evening.
And what about food services?
Food services, again, did a phenomenal job. Sheila is amazing. I think that we all eat too much pasta because it's so good, and then we get filled up, but it was fantastic.
So everyone was complimenting, if you were at the God Kids, complimenting the salad, complimenting the pasta, and they said, "Who's your caterer?" And I said, "You're eating cafeteria food." "What do you mean caterer?" So, and it was off the hook good. People were blown away. So thank you for recognizing God Kids, the students that helped out, everyone there. It was a fantastic event. We sold out 3 weeks early.
And we already have people reserving tickets for next year. Also want to share with you an idea that we are looking into, an effort that we are interested in called Future Ready Schools. And I want to give you a heads up in case you want to do a little research on your own and see what this is all about. We started looking at this a couple years ago and took a team to a training session on it. This is a nationwide effort to help districts prepare students for their future. And what we see this as is that it could be a glue that connects lots of efforts together. We have different things going on in different places, and this may help us bring things together in a cohesive manner. It is a lot about technology, but it isn't about the technology. And instead of having a technology plan, this presents us with a student learning plan that incorporates technology. So it's a broader picture of how we can create a learning plan for students to prepare them for the future. That's their image that they use, and they have different elements there in the bullet points. Those are the facets of the effort that go as a part of it. There are lots of videos, short videos about this, but I pulled one from a district that I think might help just give you an overview of what it could do. So if we could this is just a couple minutes long.
In 2025, I will graduate from high school. The world will be a much different place then.
We'll communicate in new ways.
We'll work with people we've never met. Everything I need for classes will be right in here. How do we get there? Does this do Bluetooth? I'm thinking no. Where does this go? Is this movie HD?
This used to be state-of-the-art. We have to continually adapt and innovate.
Classrooms should look more like the real world.
We need modern tools to learn to solve problems. The world will always have plenty of problems. My mom doesn't know how to do this. I'll need to learn how to learn anything.
Anyone can download or listen to it. I want to create it.
I know what I want to be when I grow up, but they haven't named it yet. Future ready? The future better get ready for me.
And me.
And me. And me. Me too.
Me too!
It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it.
Don't worry, we've got you covered. Preparing our students for tomorrow. It's the most important work we have as educators. Today's job market is different than it was 10 years ago. And in 10 years from now, who knows what it will look like. Technology will be integrated into most job functions our graduates will perform. We need to make sure that technology is integrated into everything we teach. It's a different mindset. It's not just about putting a Chromebook in front of a student. It's about how we consistently integrate ever-changing technology into our curriculum. We need to make sure we are constantly identifying the best tools and methods to prepare our students for their future. We're going to challenge our students into thinking differently, and that means we will need to think differently ourselves. It's a big job, but I know we're up to the challenge. Future ready? Really? The future better be ready for us.
We need to do a video. You can do so much better than that.
We'll do our own video someday. So I just wanted to give you a preview because we're going to bring you a report in the near future about what we're thinking and looking at and try to get a sense of where you are on the concept of future ready and how much we should proceed, pieces that we can look at and things that you want us to do. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that this will be coming as a report later. Also want to give you an update on our Say Something effort. This is the Sandy Hook Promise, where it is an anonymous reporting system for our community to report in tips. And so we just have a brief video as well on that.
It's easy for kids to make light of school violence that happens someplace else, but there is some underlying tension about school shootings.
People make jokes about it, but I hear fear behind it a little bit.
It's one reason the Lodi Unified School District will implement the anonymous reporting system known as Say Something. It was created by the Sandy Hook Promise, a nonprofit created by parents of some of the victims of the horrific school shooting that cost the lives of 26 people, 20 of them young children. The organization is known for its dramatic public service messages.
I'm sure tomorrow somebody will wish they had said something.
The Say Something program trains students and staff how to recognize telltale behavior or actions that can lead to tragedy.
Our school sites will train students via video trainings, so students will learn the warning signs of students who may be at risk of hurting themselves or others.
That includes all district students at the 6th grade level and above. They will also be taught how to use an anonymous hotline, website, and app that can be downloaded onto their phones. Cleveland McDougal has had friends threatened.
There was people that called his name out and they said they're going to mess him up. I mean, stuff like that.
Some feel the anonymous phone app will surely get some use.
You could say a lot more behind text other than face to face. At least that's what I feel like.
It takes away the fear of the stigma behind, like, you're the one that said something about this. Like, you can say something in a safe environment and nobody has to know.
Tips will go to crisis counselors at Sandy Hook Promise to assess the danger threat.
They operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And the district or law enforcement will be notified if needed. There really isn't a downside to the program. District officials say it only takes 30 to 40 minutes out of the instructional day for students and staff, and it's free of charge. Some feel the training is time well spent if it can save lives.
So it's nice to get a little positive publicity on our efforts to keep our students safe, and want to thank Chelsea for her appearance in the video as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Washer. Thank you for the excellent report, and I like those exciting new ideas. So look forward to seeing how they develop with the district. Next on our agenda, we have comments from the public. The 20-minute time period has been set aside for the public to address the board on items not listed on the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit his or her comments to 3 minutes. Is welcome to distribute any materials to the board and or staff. Due to restrictions imposed by the California Brown Act regarding discussing topics that are not on the agenda, board members may not engage in dialogue about the issue. First, we have Patty Garicki. Patty?
Yeah, hi.
Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to report in that there's been nothing done with my HERS. We're sitting still, no contact, nothing. So I'm asking if the board could maybe figure out something again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patty. Suzanne Ruiz. Here to talk about Fund 12. Suzanne? Going once? All right, Suzanne comes back, we'll take a break for her. Lori Sellers. See? Lori Sellers, I knew that.
As soon as we saw you,
Hi, I'm Lori Celeste. I'm Ansel Adams, 3rd grade teacher, and I'm here to drop off some brochures on how school leaders can support National Board Certification for teachers. We have a group of teachers in our district who are in a cohort to become nationally board certified. It's one way that you can retain teachers. So it's the nation's voluntary advanced certification system for teachers. Currently, we have 2 teachers in our district that are national board certified, and statewide in California, we are about 2.6%. So this is for you to learn a little bit more about what exactly it is and how it can help. LCAP talks are ongoing right now. So as we think toward that, this is some good information. And I've also included, I co-wrote a policy brief for California on supporting national board certification. So this is the executive summary of that. And then there's a link to the full report if you're interested in reading that. So thank you.
I am interested in knowing who our 2 teachers are, Lori, so please give them props.
I'm certified in literacy for ages 3 to 12, and Jen Castle is a national board certified teacher for adolescent young adult English language arts.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for the information. Comments from board members. 3 minutes. Oh. Any comments from board members? Mr. Neely.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to talk just a second about declining enrollment and what we're going to have to do about this. This is a one-way conversation this time, but I hope in the future we'll see this on the agenda so that we can have a more in-depth conversation about it. First of all, I want everyone to know that this year looks like we're going to lose about $4.5 million at least, just due to declining enrollment. Now, what's that mean? I mean, is it going to change our expenses any? Probably not. Probably because a class goes down 2 people doesn't mean that we can take a teacher out. So we're going to have the same expenses that we do, but we're going to be doing it with about $4.5 million less. So that's concerning in and of itself, but this is a trend that's been happening over the last few years. This year it happens to be the worst. Nothing to say it's not going to be worse next year. So what are we going to do about it? That's the question. I'm going to propose that what we need, you know how we did a building master plan? We put a lot into that. We need a master plan for what we're going to do as a district, for how we're going to use those buildings, and maybe additional buildings that we're going to need. We need to look at why we've got a declining enrollment. For those of you who remember last meeting, Rio Vista Charter came up here and told me they had 800 students. And I'm like, my God, where did those come from? And a lot of them are homeschooled. And I seem to remember that 9 years ago when I got on this board, I said, we need to try to get those homeschool students. We've got charters popping up at different places. We need to make those charters unnecessary. That's what our plan needs to include. We need to remember that we can do anything that a charter school can do. We can do that. But they can't do everything that we can do. We've got a lot of assets. We've got a lot of people, good people. So we need to start developing a plan of how we're going to capture those students back. We need to do things like music immersion, visual and performing arts classes. We need to expand on our tech. We need to do more CTE. We need to look into things like medical and expand on those. I can't name off everything here because I'm not smart enough, but I know that if we get together as a group, we can figure it out. But that's what we need to do is a plan. So, and that plan needs to include taking on charter schools head on. We can do a better job. So that's the only comment I've got. Thank you.
Mr. Neely, are you suggesting a study session on this subject?
I'm suggesting a study session, and also I'm suggesting a board subcommittee too.
Very good.
And I'd love to serve on it.
I'd join in that request for a study session and possible committee. Mr. Heberly.
Thank you, appreciate it.
One more thing.
Oh, go
I'm
for
sorry.
it. Go for it.
I just want to tell Mr. Heberly again how sorry I am about his sister. I knew Nancy and her husband Tim both, and they're just fantastic people, and I was really, really touched when I heard that. So, like Nancy and I's deepest condolences.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mr. President, first of all, I do want to thank you for that moment of silence for Nancy. I was going to say something right when you asked, but I needed to take a breath. One little anecdote, and this is an example of the quality of the people that we have in our district, that are teachers, CSA employees, up and down the line. Nancy was a middle school teacher, and probably about 15 years into her career, there was an opening that would fit right into what she did in a high school. So I told her, I go, hey, are you gonna apply for that job? And she goes, no, I'm gonna stay here. Somebody's gotta love these kids. Okay, she's in the right place, you know. She loved the performing arts, and it was really nice to see kids kind of do something different and get out of their own shells a little bit. And she was really good about doing that. So again, that's kind of a real positive thing that we do. Like Mr. Neely said, we do a variety of things in this district, a lot of things in this district. And the visual and performing arts is obviously one of them. And you never know exactly what is going to touch a child and kind of bring them into the educational system. Anyway, again, we do have a lot of people that really love the kids and love what they do. So we are a very lucky district. And again, thank you for that moment of silence. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the crab feed, but Dr. Washer stole my thunder.
Say it again.
No, you know, it was really a very nice event. Really very encouraging to see that many people that are interested in donating into the kinds of things that Got Kids provides for our students. And a lot of, you know, those enrichment things from the WOW Museum to anti-bullying to a whole bunch of stuff. Science camp and those kinds of things. So it was a great event and really worthwhile and attending. Last thing I wanted to mention, when I saw the little video on the Future Ready Schools, the first thing I thought of is, you know, putting all of these things kind of together for their future, okay? Well, the Lodi District Chamber of Commerce and Lodi Unified School District and business community have a committee called PI, Partners in Education. And that's exactly what the Chamber is leading the way in trying to coordinate those kinds of things. We have a group of volunteers throughout the community. They're called Mamas and Papas is the name of the program. And they read with kids. They go into the school and they'll read with the kids and do vocabulary and those kinds of things. Just a real quick, you know, different voice, different people. And I think what that does is helps kids realize that, you know, hey, there's more people than just this one teacher in my room that cares about me. Another one which I really like also is for middle school, and it's called Choices. And it's just like what that video was saying, is it makes the kids kind of think about their future. I used to do a lot of career day kind of presentations in my profession, and I'd always start off with, where are you gonna be in 5 years? And they kind of look at you like, there's a future? Well, yes, there is, and it's coming fast. I was just talking to our student reps before the meeting. Can you believe that this school year is half over? So it goes really fast. And so that's all part of this, getting kids ready for the future through the chamber or through programs like this or through CTE or our regular curriculum. So we are doing a lot. And I just wanted to bring that up. When I saw that video, I thought, man, this dovetails perfectly into it. So we're doing great things.
Those school years don't go slower when you get older, right?
No, aren't we still in like 2018? What happened to
Very nice.
19 went whoosh.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Support?
Oh, you caught me off guard there. When I was preparing for tonight's board meeting, I was struck when I looked at the kids that were up for expulsion and so forth. And one of the things that came out at me was the fact that their attendance record all the way through had not been really looked at. And the teachers have done their due diligence, and of course you hear the counselors say we talked to them and so forth and so on. But I'd really like to see us move towards a heavy look at absenteeism and the effects that it has on student performance. And we all know that you're not going to learn unless you're here. And with that, of course, kids are chronically truant or more likely to be getting in trouble and so forth. So I'm concerned about our PBIS. I noticed that we do have an individual that's in charge of positive school climate, Enrique Alvaros, is that correct? Avalos. He's a coordinator of positive school climate, is that correct? And I noticed that down at Santa Ana Unified School District, each school has their own school climate coordination set up. Some schools might be more set towards drug abuse, absenteeism, mental health, whatever. But I would like to see us develop some of those based on what each little community, being each school, needs. And I think that all should be wrapped up in PBS, which I think right now is floundering. Because too much is the teachers are doing their work, they're chronicalizing what's happening in the classroom. Some of these kids are basically not learning, not doing the job, coming to class late, or not coming at all, then they show up, they affect learning, teachers are putting this into areas, and then nothing gets done. And that is a concern of mine. I'd like to see us move forward where we look at ways to intervene and find out what's happening. Because it's not happening at the school, it's happening at home or in the community. We need to address that situation.
How about pardon the interruption, but how about a study session on that?
I think we need to look heavily at absenteeism. So whatever, obviously you're way more intelligent than I am, so whatever you suggest I go along with.
I'm not a doctor, like you are.
No, I'm just a lowly little individual that is concerned about kids that are missing school.
Why don't we look at a study session, a future study session for absenteeism, strategies and causes?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand with what Mr. Neely was talking about too, ways to capture students and keep them in class. So the two go hand in hand, I believe.
Good point. So maybe one study session's looking at both.
And and I believe that I would like to serve on that as well and incorporate Enrique with that because he's part of our positive climate. Obviously, certain areas like schools that are heavily with migrant ed might need additional services in certain areas, whereas other schools might need help with more mental health issues. We don't know. Maybe we have more drug abuse going on in one reason. I do know at Santa Ana they're trying to find out why they had more suspensions on a Tuesday versus all other days.
Monday Night Football.
Using their data, right, Monday Night Football. So it was interesting. Anyway, those are some things we need to talk about. And lastly, I would love us to go to where we recognize every month a classified and a non-classified individual. And we do so at the board meeting. We do all these nice little fancy board things, and the president, when they're done, they get a nice little gavel. But the people that are doing the work, such as our classified, non-classified, it would be really nice if we'd recognize one individual from each category at each board meeting and have them here, maybe have something we could give them, acknowledging their hard work and the recognition. So that's something I'd like to see happen. And maybe get their face up on the revolving video that we have out here, which is mainly just principals, which no one really cares about, but the teachers and the classified are more important. Okay? So that's an idea, and I'd like to see the board push through on that and give more recognition to those people that are working tirelessly with our children.
Thank you very much. Mr. Canassa?
Yes. I just want to point out that this happens to be the first meeting of the calendar year, but more important, I guess, the first meeting of a brand new decade. I've always believed that Lodi Unified is a leader in education, and Mr. Neely and Ms. Porter mentioned that several problems or issues we're going to have: budget, declining enrollment, charters, safety concerns. But I've always thought that Lodi Unified is a leader in education, and in my crystal ball, I foresee us continuing to be a leader and a great place for our students to be. So, starting a new decade, Let's do it right.
And maybe following up on Dr. Porter's idea, I like the idea of recognition. We have so many amazing employees that do, and friends that are doing so many wonderful things in our district. If we can give more recognition, I'm all in favor of that. So I like to work to figure out a way to see how that would look like.
Maybe even include community members.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have a doctorate, I have a master.
He just thinks he's a cleaner.
I think you just promoted.
I'll take the doctorate.
You're a doctor in my book.
All right, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Clerk of the board?
I'm good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Said it once, said it twice, we'll say it 3 times. Got kids scrap feed, absolutely amazing. Even after cleaning 1,100 pounds of live crab, I still enjoy the crab feed and the crab, and it was absolutely amazing. And if you've never had a chance to clean 1,100 pounds of live crab, I highly recommend, not being a Tom Sawyer here, but come on down and we'll have plenty of crab for you to clean next year, because it's a great event and so well roundly attended. And I think, like Mr. Heavily was pointing out, it is absolutely fantastic to see once again the community supporting Lodi students and their generosity towards our students. And it was a great time and for a great cause. So thank you very much, everyone that was involved for that, and for my colleagues recognizing it. Those are the comments from board members. Any other comments from board members? I did ask the public, we had the 3 department members, was there anybody else that wanted to join in public comment before we move on into the consent agenda? Okay. And Susan Ruiz, still last chance? All right, well, if she shows up, we'll be more than happy to take her somewhere else in the meeting. With that, we move on to action items. We have consent agenda A, with any board members request that any action items in consent agenda item to be pulled.
A1.
Yes, Mr. Porter.
A1.
Thank you. Mr. Neely.
A11 for a brief comment, please.
Thank you.
A10, comment.
Thank you, Mr. Beverly. Any other board members request any consent items to be pulled? I am also requesting that item A11 be pulled. Any members from the public request that any of the consent agenda A items to be pulled?
A3, 4, and 5.
A3, A4. That's Michelle Oregon. For the voice in the back. Thank you, Michelle. Any other items to be pulled? We will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move we pass consent agenda A minus the items that have been pulled.
Thank you, Mr. Canassa. And have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your second. Any further comment? Call for the vote. Student vote. It's been a long time since I've done this. I'm so sorry.
But you're doing a great job.
Yes, you are. Appreciate that. Student vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 2 ayes from the students. Thank you very much, our students. Call for the vote.
Uh-oh.
You're not logged in.
I'm not logged in yet, am I? I was.
I'm logged in, but it's not coming up.
Mine keeps bouncing out. Okay, go back.
That was a little too technical difficult.
Future ready.
What if we took a voice vote? We could take a voice vote? Voice vote, Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Heberly?
Aye.
Mrs. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. McCannat?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Freitas? Aye. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Consent item A1, changes to adopted budget. Mr. Porter?
I just have a point of clarification. I don't know if Mr. Khan's still on the phone.
I'm on the phone, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm looking
Are you
at,
wearing a tie?
I'm looking at pool safety.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at pool safety. I believe it's 112.11. And I was just a point of information. I didn't have a chance to email you today. Realign pool safety budget to reflect transfer to personnel, labor relations budget. I was just curious about that. This is A1, but it's 100.11. Excuse me, 112.11. On A1.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to have to get back to you on that, Mr. Porter. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
not.
fine. It was just one clarification. The other one that I had was on Jive, and I forgot the number. I don't have it written down. Well, the number I have down is not correct. Could you tell me what Jive, this is just my lack of knowledge. What is Jive exactly? We spend a lot of money on it, and I know it's coming up later.
So Jive is the voice over internet protocol telephone system and PA and intercom system.
And this is being used at all schools?
Not yet, no, sir. It's still going to take us another couple of years to get every school retrofitted with the service.
Now, I noticed that it's item 2206.03, where Creekside is getting a Jive system. I believe you're looking at $62,000. Is that correct?
Sounds correct, yes, sir.
Okay, now, okay, so Jive system is in place. What is its effectiveness?
Well, we look at it from several different perspectives. Just as a ballpark figure, versus the old copper wiring, it's easily 30% of the cost of using the old phone systems. It combines the PA and intercom system into it. Our old phone system oftentimes used, for want of a better term, party lines where, say, 4 or 5 classrooms would share a single telephone line. I probably could go on if I had something in front of me, but those are the things that first come to mind.
And how much money do we spend on Jive overall?
I think the entire rollout will be in excess of $1 million. But again, given what it would have taken to replace our systems, I think you'll recall that Tokay's system failed in about half of the campus last year. The old system, we would have had to source out both the PA and intercom system and the new telephone system. And I feel comfortable saying that the Jive system is about 30 cents on the dollar. So
Right, so the cost factor is good. Are all the principals up to date on how to use that?
their trainings have occurred. It's a very complicated system to use it to its full capacity. I'm not sure if I were a site principal, I'd even want to know all the things that it does. So if the question is, is every site trained to use the system to its fullest extent? I'd have to admit probably not, but I think everybody's trained to use it effectively. Yes.
So everyone's trained to use it effectively in terms of communication and also communication to students in like a lunch setting, things like that? Or
I believe so.
Part of the PA system, also setting off alarms, things like that as well?
I believe so. the one restriction we have on the system is we don't allow the bell schedules to be changed at the site level, but aside from that, I believe everybody's trained to use it in the components that you've just mentioned.
So the bell system then is set up by the district level, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Do you have a motion? Mr. Porter?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm done with A1, yes.
Do you have a motion?
I would, motion for what?
Move to approve.
I would, thank you. I would like to approve A1.
Thank you.
Unless anybody else has some comments.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Slow, how quickly we deteriorate.
Yeah.
Mr. Porter has moved and Mrs. McFarland has second. Changes to adopted budget, item A1. Any further comments from the board? Student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, thank you. And call for the board vote.
We're going to have to do this one on voice also, but on A3, we're going to try and get back to electronic voting.
Thank you, Bill. So going with the voice vote, Mr. Neely?
Aye.
Mr. Heberly?
Aye.
Mr. Porter?
Aye.
Mr. Knatzett?
Aye.
Mrs. McFarland?
Aye.
And I, Mr. Freitas. Carries 6-0 with 1 absent, item A1. Item A3. Ms. Oregon.
Good evening.
Evening.
Board, Happy New Year. Superintendent Washer. I pulled these 3 items because they are dealing with one site, Needham Elementary. I know that we've talked, as you know, it's my home site, in looking at the online version of our Measure U and the updates that are happening and the changes that are happening with the plan and, for example, the map of the site. We're not updating online the changes in the maps and what the plan is for the site. So I know all 3 of these have to do with contracts and the details of the plan. But on our online Measure U for this particular site, because I'm familiar with it, in looking at it, it was brought to our attention that the most recent map that was shared at the last Measure U meeting with the staff does not match what is online. So just so that we're all on the same page with the same maps and the updates that are going, I'm sure that the contracts will reflect the changes in the maps, but it'd be nice to have those changed. So all 3 of those have to do with the same topic.
Very good, thank you, Michelle. Any further comments from the public? Comments from the board? Can we have a motion as to item A3?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Heberly, for your motion. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your... You were just close. Mr. Neely, you second the motion. Call for the student vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Call for the board vote. Under discussion. It's coming. Wait for it. And the motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. Can I have a motion as to item A4? Any further comments on A4? No further comments. Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your motion. Thank you, Ms. McFarland, for your second. Call for the student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Call for the board vote. And motion carries 6-0 with 1 absent. probably could stop saying absent, all right? I think maybe. Item 8.5, any further comments from the public or from the board?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mr. Heverly, for your vote, for your motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland, for your second. And call for the student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, students. And call for the board vote. And carries 6-0. Item A10, consent agenda, Mr. Heverly.
This is for a comment only. That site that houses Henderson Independence, Valley Robotics Charter, and Child Welfare and Attendance has had water problems in the past. Right now we're using portable water out of a tank. And when this came before the board that there were water problems, a solution was suggested, and we met with the city of Lodi and suggested, Mr. Khan suggested that, hey, you know, it's kind of close to your nearest subdivision. Is there a possibility? And the response was, yeah, sure, we can do that. Again, people recognizing that there are bigger issues outside of their agency, and I think that Mr. Khan and the city of Lodi worked very well together, and I think this is a wonderful thing to have a steady, clean water supply for those facilities at that site. Very pleased to say it. I just want to bring it out there and so that the public knows that, and the employees that are out there know that you're going to get some nice water pretty soon. And with that, motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Heverly, for those comments. And this is very, very exciting of the versatility that we will have at this location with this going in. So thank you for recognizing that. And thank you, Mr. Neely, for your second. Any further comments from the public? Further comments from the board? Thank you. Wingman.
Sorry.
With a hookup to the city, will they no longer be using the groundwater for the fields? Will they be using all the water? Do we know from the city?
Mr. Khan?
Thank you very much, Vice President Perez, members of the board, Dr. Washer. The plan right now is to use the connection for domestic water just for the cost, but once the connection is in place, if the board prefers, we could actually use it, the city water to irrigate the soil as well. But business's recommendation would be to continue to use the well water on the grass.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Any further questions?
Just a comment on that again, having to wait for water that could be contaminated to evaporate before the field is used is a deterrent, because it is still not best for people to be touching it. So we would prefer that we use something that is not contaminated and could possibly in any way affect our students.
Good point. No, let's not use contaminated water. So, all right. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further comments from the board or from the public? Student vote.
Aye.
Aye. And call for the board vote. Thank you, students, for your ayes.
Our audience is lopsided. Bride and groom.
Oh, it sounded like you were voting in favor of contaminated water.
Second one.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. And the motion carries 6-0. Item A11, Mr. Neely.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real quick, this is about our student plan, single site student plan. I think, what's the right name for it?
Single Plan for Student Achievement, with the acronym of FUSTA.
Yeah, interesting document. I'd like to tell you that I read all 25 documents and 1,000 plus pages, but that would not be accurate. But my concern is that we do this every year, and when I was teaching, I remember being in the classroom, we did them then. I was on the site council for a while. And then once you did it, you put it away and you never looked at it again. So I'm wondering if that's still going on, and I'd like to just make the comments. We passed this, particularly Mr. McGregor. Are your sites going to be using this?
Mr. Neely, members of the board, that is a great point, and I think it's something that in addition to the PLC visits we do with Dr. Washer and the school plans with Title I sites, that's something I'm constantly talking with them about, that it is a driving document. It should be the focus that drives the work we do with the school. And I think Mr. Seha has done a great job working with the Title I principals and focusing their attention to the things that can best improve student performance.
Good deal. I'm glad to hear that. I know a lot of this document is just fill in the blank, and there's some ridiculous things in it, but there are also some good things, and some thought needs to be put in it and carried forward. So that's the only comment I wanted to make on that. I wanted to bring it to the attention that if we're going to do this, if we're going to put all this work into it, let's try to get something out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Neely.
Mr. Brett, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you for your motion, Mr. Neely.
I have
Mr. Porter?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor, as Mr. Neely said, we have this wonderful document, but the world that I live in is accountability. At the end of these documents, what are we doing to look back at our data and see how we're doing? And how do you report out and see if that student achievement plan was successful or not? And what do you need to improve on and what you don't need to improve on? Do you have channels for that?
At the end of the year, the principals are to review the work that has been done to look at the success of what they've done and have done and then plan for next year. So that's a part of the process. And again, Mr. Seha, Dr. Seha, who has come in and led the work there, is driving that work very well. And I think the communication with the principals, the direction that he's given, has been a lot more laser focused, and it is helping the principals think more as an instructional leader and focusing that work rather than just looking at a document where we're checking, crossing our T's, dotting our I's, and submitting the document.
Yeah, but how do you know if it's successful or not?
I think
what kind of data are you using?
What's that?
How do you know if these Title I plans are successful or not?
What they're going to do, they've set goals, percentages in language arts and math.
Well, I've glossed over a couple of them.
Okay,
so there's nothing in there that says we're going to use this to achieve, this is what we're going to look at to make sure that we're at that point or not. I didn't see anything in there that said this will tell us whether we're successful or not.
I think they circle back to the percent gains that they've identified in the goals.
Okay.
So that would be what they look back and they see, if they said we're going to make a 5% growth in our mathematics scores and the CASP scores, okay, then they'll reflect back once those scores come out to see if did the focus work, the goals we set, to make that improvement, did it work?
So a year from now, let's say, or whatever, we could then look at these documents they have now, and then look at the results and see how they match up.
Correct.
And that's what we're trying to do here tonight.
Correct. I mean, that is the document, as Mr. Neely said, the work that is focused on trying to achieve those goals. And hopefully, when CASP scores come out, we can, look at those goals and say, hey, yay, we achieved them. If we didn't, then it's got to be revisited and try to analyze what did we do wrong or what can we do better.
Okay, I like that. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Mr. Porter, can I trouble you for a second?
Yeah.
Thank you for your second. Further comments?
First, we'd like to say a big thank you for getting these out and the board agenda and items out earlier than just the Friday before. That gave a lot of members the time and opportunity to look over things. Once again, it was reported at Rep Council this week that not every school is being very transparent with the dollars and the money spent and the budget and what they're buying and where they're going. And these are only our Title I sites. Our understanding is leadership teams drive the other budgets. So again, we just like to ask that it is brought to every staff member, every teacher is very clear on where those dollars are being spent and not just in this document at this time, making it public.
Very good.
So
Thank
Ron,
you.
if you could please give us the name of those schools, we will work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dr. Washer. And I asked that this item be pulled. We saw this as a report item last year.
Last meeting.
Last year.
Right.
Last decade.
There you go.
A decade ago. And this obviously, we saw all these with now the addition of Liberty. Liberty's been added to the list. Now it's an action item. But this obviously is an amazing amount of work. As my colleagues point out, it's very thought-provoking. I think in the questions that have to be answered and the thought that has to be put behind it. I also appreciate that we're now, like my colleague Mr. Porter is pointing out, that we're attaching objective standards and goals to subjective things such as learning. And I look forward to seeing how we turn out this. Ms. Kotowski, unless she's hiding somewhere back there, is not here tonight? There, you are hiding back there.
I came in late.
Very. Anyway, an amazing amount of work with your staff, and thank you very much for this presentation and putting this together once again. So, and I think we have a motion from Mr. Neely, a second from Mr. Porter. Any other comments from the board? And call for the student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, students. Call for the board vote. And it carries 6-0.
You thanked the students, but you didn't thank us for voting?
Thank you, board members, for your vote. Yeah.
Don't joke.
Oh, he said that it's going to be tough with you guys. He was. Consent agenda B, student discipline cases.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Neely.
We approve.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. McFarland, for your second. Students do not vote on student discipline cases. Call for the vote. And it carries 6-0. Other action items, we have item OAI1, a resolution for the hiring of short-term classified employees. Mr. McKilligan.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, this is our annual item to approve short-term positions for people during the summer months.
Thank you, Mr. McKilligan. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? The chair will entertain a motion.
Sorry, just a quick comment.
No.
Actually,
Thank you, Deborah.
It's more of a question. Deborah Ladwick, President of the CSEA chapter here in Lodi. And I noticed that the resolution this year is kind of a combo resolution. Previous years, you've specified custodial, and then you might have another one for groundskeepers. I was just wondering, are you planning on hiring people for specific positions, or were you going to hire them and then perhaps assign them on a day-to-day basis for particular positions? That was my question. I just didn't know in reading this item. If I applied, would I be applying to do one thing, or would I be applying to be in a pool that I could be assigned to do any of these things?
You'd be applying for one thing.
One thing.
Each of these would be posted separately.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't sure how that was going to work just based on the notice. So, thank you.
Very good. Thanks for the question, Deborah. Sorry about that, but my wingman was asleep. He wasn't letting me know that. And student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, students. And call for the board vote. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a motion? No, we don't. Okay, Mr. Neely has motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. McFarland has seconded. Call for the vote. And it carries 6-0. Item OAI2, also a resolution for the hiring of short-term classified employees. Mr. McKilligan.
Mr. Vice President, this is an item to approve short-term employees in this particular group, so just for the next 6 months.
Very good, thank you. Any comments from the board? Comments from the public?
Move to approve.
Seeking a motion, thank you, Mr. Knexted. And thank you, Mr. Hebley, for your second. Student vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, students. Call for the board vote. And the motion carries 6-0. Item OAI3, resolution authorizing the district to participate in zero-emission transit, school, and shuttle bus project and to apply and administer the Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust Funds. Mr. Khan, can we have a longer title, please?
Apologies. Thank you, Vice President Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. Before the board is the resolution that will allow the district to proceed with an application to cover the purchase of 6 electric school buses. This is all being funded with the exception of 5% match by Volkswagen. The board may recall that some time ago Volkswagen experienced a great deal of difficulty due to the ratings that it advertised on its diesel vehicles. This is the resolution between Volkswagen and the state of California. Be happy to take any questions.
Ms. Khan, if I understand this correctly, we're getting 6 buses for about, it costs $2 million, and we're going to pay roughly $130,571.90.
If we are successful in obtaining the grant, the board should know that these electric vehicles are a bit more expensive than your typical diesel bus. I think a big Bluebird is a little over $200,000 for a diesel. CNGs are a little bit more expensive, but at better than $400,000 each. These are somewhat expensive, but they are zero emission, a true zero emission.
Well, this is very, very exciting. Thank you for finding this opportunity for us and presenting it to the board. Any other comments from the board? Comments from the public? Seeking a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Hebley, for your second. Student vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, students. And call for the board vote. And the motion carries 6-0. Item OAI4, approval of amendment number 1 to the memorandum of understanding between Lodi Unified School District and Pacific Charter Institute. Dr. Washer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. This is in response to the previous action the board took to approve the renewal of the charter. There was an MOU that we were working on, and the approval was contingent upon this, and so that's what this is tonight.
And I see in the supporting documents that Pacific Charter Institute has already signed their portion of this, and they are in agreement with this. So very good, thank you. Any further comments from the board? Comments from the public? Have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for the motion.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hebley, for your second. Call for the student vote.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, students. And call for the board vote. and it carries 6-0. Personnel matters, Mr. McKilligan.
Mr. Vice President, routine personnel matters are presented for your consideration.
And some of our favorite principals are on this list. So I guess this is the time of year where we see retirements, and we see Harold Brown is on this list from Sutherland, and Jim Davis from Middle College, and longtime district employees that will be very much missed. And we're going to have some big shoes filling these. So anyway, wish our best to both of them and everyone that's retired from the district. So can I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Have a second?
Sure. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Haverly. Students do not vote on personnel matters. Call for the board vote. Personnel matters carry 6-0. Comments from student representatives. And we are so lucky tonight to have our favorite two student representatives here, Atia and Daniel. Have you flipped a coin or arm wrestled or figured out who's going to go first? Or?
I'll go first.
Very good. Well, thank you, Daniel. How are things at Bear Creek?
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Washer, thank you for having me tonight. At Bear Creek, things are going pretty well. Some of the past school activities that we had in the past few weeks include our boys basketball versus Chavez and our boys basketball versus Chavez as well. Those both happened last Friday the 10th. And in that basketball game, we won, but unfortunately we did not have the same result for the soccer game. In student government, we're currently preparing for our crab feed, which is coming up on the 1st of February. And we're also creating decor for our AP preview day, which is going to be tomorrow, actually. And for our special student and staff accomplishments, I'd like to recognize all of the Bruin Way Award recipients. And that is it.
Thank you. Very good, Daniels. And Atia, what's going on over at Tokay?
Good evening, Dr. Washer, Vice President, members of the board. Happy New Year to you all. A lot is going on at Tokay, even though it is our second week back. So we have, for school activities and programs, we were just shown the Say Something video that you saw that Dr. Washer pulled up for us. It was very informational. I think it was a great add-on to how well we reacted to the lockdown that we had at Tokay. Action was taken immediately, and I think this video is really something important for us students because unfortunately we have to look for and be prepared for these types of incidents. And we also have our Mad City Money Financial Literacy Workshop on January 28th. And we have our sports teams entering league play, which is really exciting, especially for me as a cheerleader. And for student government, we have our Color Street fundraiser. They are a nail company. They basically supply strips of acrylic nail polish that you can apply really easily without having to paint your nails yourself, because that can be quite a task. And we also are working on upcoming events. Prom, we have a dance coming up, a Sadie's dance, which is Girls Ask Guys. And we have our spring carnival that we are also thinking about. And we also have our blood drive on February 28th. We have for performances, we have Mock Trial is preparing for their competition in mid-February. They've been practicing a lot. And we also have our NorCal Science Festival, which is February 29th, which is a really big event for us at Tokay. And for special staff and accomplishments and recognitions, we have Ms. Castle, who is recognized by the Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education for her excellence in the classroom, which is very well deserved for her. And she is being invited to a conference in LA to be celebrated for her excellence. So congratulations to Ms. Castle. And we also have, for upcoming events, We have our special ed basketball game against Bear Creek, which is really exciting for us. And we are hosting it at Tokay. And we are also starting to train our poll workers for the upcoming election. And we have our baseball shrimp feed, which is happening January 25th, which is next week. And it's $50 per person, and it's at the SPOA building in Stockton. And I heard the shrimp is going to be really good.
All you can eat.
Yes.
Absolutely. When is the special ed basketball game?
Next week, I believe it is on Thursday, which
Wonderful.
is the 23rd,
Yeah.
I believe.
Mr. Porter and I, he was able to attend, but we both commented last year, what an amazing event.
It is. It's very
Yeah.
special.
That is absolutely fantastic that
Yes.
that is being carried on.
Best sporting event I've ever been to.
It supports, it promotes a lot of school spirit, and it's a lot of fun for us at Tokay. Definitely.
Fantastic. We could get the dates on those because I think a couple of those other ones, I know the board would definitely like to attend. I know I would.
Definitely.
We had the winter break, which is, making cookies and us eating too much, but it's for high school seniors, it's college application time, cranking them out. What can you tell us about your search? How's it going?
My search personally is going pretty well. I'm still kind of getting through the application process a little bit. I have one more college to apply to, Oregon State University. I'm just kind of applying for scholarships at the moment. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward for the application process to be over, but I'm excited.
You have a number one school at you?
Probably Oregon State or UC Davis.
And what are you looking at majoring in?
I would like to major in animal science to be a veterinarian.
Wow. Good for you. Good. Daniel, how's it going?
Currently, I haven't heard anything back from any of my CSUs that I've applied to, but I have heard back from UOP. I was accepted, and they also chose to award me with the Regent Scholarship, which is $22,000.
Very, very nice.
Very good.
There's a couple UOP alumni here, and I'm one.
I'm one.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Good job, Dan.
Thank you.
And what are you looking, what's your major?
Mechanical engineering right now.
Wow. Oh. Very, very nice. Well, we'll see you a couple more times this year. You'll have to let us know how it's going and everything else. And thank you for the wonderful reports. And no pressure to you. You only had your principal, assistant principal, vice principal. They're watching there, but I know they're very, very proud of you.
It's a pleasure to see them all here.
They didn't have a choice for that.
They're here just for you.
Of course.
Very, very good. Well, thank you. If you could stay a little bit for that presentation, it'd be nice to have your input on one of our agenda items. But also, though, if you have homework and things you have to work on, we understand also. So we'll see what's going on. Employee reps, do we have any follow-up with our employee reps? Good evening.
Good evening, Liz Engelbrick, representing LPPA. I apologize for my attire. Today was neon day at Lodi Middle School, and this is all I could find.
Trust me, if we could be wearing that, we would, so.
Yes, we're raising money for Pennies for Patients, and so this week is a Spirit Week for us.
Fantastic, very nice. Thank you, Liz.
On a side note, the information that you were hoping for about the basketball tournament for special ed, you can reach out to Todd Harrington. He's organizing it, but I work closely with Jesse Pereira at Tokay, and on my calendar, I have 10 o'clock on next Thursday for the basketball tournament.
It starts at 10:30.
It starts at 10:30. So, thank you guys. Yeah. Teamwork. And I really enjoyed it
So
too
that's-
as well.
that's the 23rd?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so.
That's okay?
Yep.
And we have a second game usually too, right, Mel? Very good. But why would we go anywhere other than this?
Right?
Very good, thank you.
It's the most important one. As LPPA rep tonight, I want to make sure that you guys all know who we are. We are school psychologists, school counselors for elementary, middle, and high school nurses, the speech language pathologists, and program specialists. There have been a lot of changes in special ed lately, and we're really hopeful that those changes will be positive for our department to enable us to help our students better. We are still experiencing shortages, but we're hopeful again. We are in negotiations, and we are hopeful that we'll come to a good resolution that helps us to serve our students. We were very honored to be able to help and support at Got Kids this weekend. We had a big table there, and we also provided a basket for the silent auction, and we will continue to do that. We really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Good evening again, and my sentiments on the Happy New Year, and we're off to the races as third quarter is well underway, and we have lots of things going on. We also, with my first time participating at the Got Kids Crab Feed, because it always conflicted with another group's crab feed that I had a family member that was part of organizing that. So it was a very nice event, and encourage all those that didn't get a chance to go that they sign up next year to attend, because it was unusual having hot crab and not marinated crab, so that was unique. We are excited that we have jumped that hurdle and had our first session of bargaining at the table. We look forward to a year of quick negotiations and fast solutions to problems and great language. There was one thing that was brought up in negotiations about combo classes, and I was directed by my rep council to make sure that the board is very clear that not one teacher believes that a combo class is the class for any student. We believe that there should be no combo classes. Just so that the belief was maybe that the complaints that you heard were about the teachers in combo classes, but we want to make sure, I was directed to make sure you understood that we don't believe combo classes are effective at all. With that said, we have had lots of little rumblings in special ed, as you just heard my fellow colleague here from LPPA talk about the shortages. My teachers are suffering with shortages, shortages of psychologists, speech and language teachers, special ed teachers, in the testing process, and there seems to be an influx of members from outside our district that are requesting testing, which has impacted how many assessments our special ed teachers have to give. So it is vital that with the changes that have been made in restructuring some of the special ed, it seems a little administrative heavy. We'd like to make sure that you understand that having teachers on the front lines, speech therapists on the front lines, psychologists on the front lines, so that they can help make sure that the placement of every child is individualized and they are in the class that is best suited for them, that is least restrictive. We're also about to undertake the first transfer posting. So you will hear lots of teachers talking about positions that are open, closed, applying to, and switching. And as we start this process, we always want to make sure that you understand we want to make sure that Lodi Unified is the destination to teach in. And as we go forward in bargaining, we want to keep those teachers from applying for other districts and apply to ours, especially as we enter this year for the new eligibility pool and job fair coming up. So We want to be that destination. We want teachers to feel great in their job, not frustrated and overwhelmed with the amount of things of testing and lack of time in a day because of the numbers that are so high. So again, we'd love to see more focus on down at the classroom level being applied and searching for those individuals as we go forward instead of administrator heavy. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Any other employee groups? Further comments from the superintendent?
Just one thing, thank you, Mr. Vice President. A reminder that Saturday is the eSports League at the county. Might be an interesting event to attend. So if you have a chance, you may want to stop by the county office and check out what's going on with eSports.
We could get more information on that?
Yes, we have several teams, including Tokay, which was the initial team in the area. So we have a couple of schools that will be competing.
We have an idea what time that's starting, or?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
It's an all-day event. McNair
They can play
and
video games all
Plaza
day.
JV in the
Don't wake up at
morning.
7:50.
McNair against Lincoln varsity in the afternoon. So we're excited. It's the first time that we've had competition and partnership with the County Office of Education. And we just think it's going to be a great opportunity for these students.
This is really exciting. And what they're doing is going to be projected up on the boards. We're going to be able to watch this.
Yes.
Not understand it, but watch it.
Yes.
Just be blown away.
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Washer. We have our one report item tonight, and it's general information regarding the lockdown at Tokay High. And Mr. Palmquist, I believe your name is on this?
His name is on there, but I'm going to start, if you don't mind, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. Just a couple things before you get started with any conversation you may have. Just want to make it clear that we are not going to be able to talk about details of procedures or protocols for safety in a public forum. We do need to keep the conversation general in nature. We have given you a timeline from the district perspective that does not include any specific information that happened at the school site, and we don't want to get into that kind of conversation at this point in terms of our safety procedures. So we did also get input from teachers, as was suggested by the board, and we've given that to you. A lot of it focused on communication, and we do know that we need to tighten that up and streamline that, and there are things that we have learned from that as well that we can use in the future. So we ask that we focus on the general nature of the incident and not specifics about safety. I also want to make it clear that the direction to lock down the school on that day was given by me, and the school site carried out my direction. And it was unfortunately a very difficult timing aspect that students had just been dismissed and were out and about all over campus. So I want to thank Tokay High administration for carrying out the direction in such a difficult timing. As unfortunate as this was to do, it did provide us with a unique learning experience on how this might be handled in the future if anything were to happen of a serious nature during a time when kids are not in class. Because we know that we cannot predict when something might happen. It could happen at any time. So it is good to have a learning experience during a time that is not convenient for folks.
Thank you for that lead in, Dr. Washer, and thank you to you and your staff for putting this information together. Just like you've said, it is not this goal of this board to be on a witch hunt or to pass accusations. This is the most approachable board that I've been on, and we'd like to learn. And I think our constituents, our employees, our students, our families had some questions, so it was incumbent upon us to ask these questions. And if we do cross the line as into strategies that are inappropriate, that's not there. But we would like to hear the presentation and have an opportunity that this be fully vetted in this forums to the satisfaction of the board and all involved.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. We do not have a presentation at this point. We've given information, and the board asked that it be on the agenda for discussion. So we don't have anything in addition to present to you other than what has been on the agenda.
Mr. Vice President.
Yes, Mr. Everett.
I too would like to throw a couple of things out there as a lead-in also. Being in safety services, there are, well, in the fire service, it was absolutely part of our culture and absolutely expected that we do critiques on the emergency situations we have. And it wasn't to throw anybody under the bus, it wasn't to point fingers, it was for the sole purpose of keeping people alive and developing the best practices, policies and procedures and guidelines. And it's kind of second nature for us. We do it on a crew level, a shift level, a department level. And even it goes so far as to our trade journals that are produced, they'll also have incidents that happen. And all of it is geared for adding tools to your toolbox because all responses are very different. And those kinds of things that we would do nowadays, things have changed since 9/11. A lot of things that we were very open about. Right after 9/11, as a supervisor, we would get a lot of information from Homeland Security, from FBI, and it got to the point it was like, holy moly, I'm glad somebody's watching this and thinking about all these things, but it gets a little overwhelming. But bringing it down to the site level, I'm looking at this as school X. It doesn't matter where it happened. But the things that we can talk about are, communications, there is the timeline in there, need for training. And I would say that would be kind of like standard for every school, is that, there has to be a training plan so that everybody knows what's going on, how do we best communicate. Those are the kinds of things that we can bring forward. In addition to that, there is a district safety committee, but when all these things happened in other agencies as well as ours, the board wanted to make sure that we take these things very seriously and start looking at them. And that's why we developed this safety group of board members where we can call people in and look at different things as how are our communications, the response, who do we call, and those kinds of things. Now, in no way do I want this to go to the point where, and I'm going to ask us to all monitor this, is that we don't divulge specific responses, because what all that does is telegraph to other people that maybe have intentions of how to get around it. So we do need to kind of keep things in generalities, and I'm looking for if we want to get into that nitty-gritty of how things work, what happened, where are we, who did what at what time. I see that as a presentation to a safety group, and then that way we can speak clearer, because anyway, that's the best venue. That's how I see it, and that's kind of what I'm looking for tonight. So,
thank you, Mr. Everly. Further comments from the board?
I have a couple questions. What I would like to hear tonight is what went well. I've heard lots of things that went well. And so I would like to hear from your perspective what you thought happened that was positive that came out of it. What did you do? What procedures were in place that went well? Not necessarily what went wrong, because we can talk about those things later, but I want to hear what you thought went well that day from staff to teachers to campus that you can share? Because I have heard that a lot went really well and some things worked extremely positive. And so let's leave with something positive.
Who do you want to hear that?
Anybody who wants to, I mean, I'm sure there's a million different perspectives.
We'll have maybe some Tokay High administrators come up and share, but I just want to remind folks that we are not talking about specific procedures.
Mr. Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer, to Ms. McFarland's question, I'd say what went well. I would, personally, I'd like to make sure we address, or whether it's in this forum or others, what didn't go well. Because that is, I would say, that's the more important stuff. What went well, I think, is our entire school responded very well. When we look at our staff and our students, and again, this happens when we're talking something just as our first lunch was starting. So we're talking cafeteria staff also were responding, and custodial staff and everyone, because we had a lot of kids outside. The campus was cleared and students back into classes in under 3 minutes, which for a campus our size is very good. There are those things that when we get into, again, some of the details I'd rather not share as far as specific procedures, but getting everyone indoors and getting them where they needed to be happened pretty seamlessly overall. We had a lot of students going into rooms that they weren't familiar with. That's one of the things we were working on, how we address that, because they were all out either going to lunch or passing period. So we had the students getting into and staff getting into the nearest building, classroom, places like that. So it might not be a room or a location that they were either familiar with, or that was a teacher that they knew or a staff member that they knew. So there's some things that we've learned that we need to address within that. But that part of the process went very well to get everything started.
Taking students into different classrooms, was that an audible or decision?
No, that's something that we practice. We do our lockdown drills twice a year. We'd actually just done one on September 18th, I believe, September 14th.
I think Mr. Everly and I were there, so yeah.
Yeah, and we do one a year, again, just talking about our drills, but we do one a year when we're already in class, and we do one a year when we're in a passing period. So everyone's outside, so we do have an idea of what it takes to get into the nearest open door, get inside and close those doors.
Oh, good. Great.
Mr. Vice President, members of the board, I also just want to chime in. What went well from my perspective is that district office support staff responded immediately. There were 3 district office administrators there within minutes, Mr. Kahn, Mr. Holloway, Mr. Palmquist, to provide any support that was needed.
And Mr. Freitas, if I could add in there other things that went well. The students reporting what was going on, what caused the situation, everything else. I would say that's one of the things that we need to work on as well, because it didn't get reported, I think, by the first people who saw things. But it did get reported by students to staff, and then we worked on what actions we needed to take. But I think there were some other folks that could have reported it earlier. That goes back to something that Ms. Edwards mentioned with our Say Something program and everything else that we've just been doing this past week, and stressing the importance of being able to get to adults and or other folks promptly when there is a concern on campus. And that's something we need to further address. The folks who did report it did well. I think it could have reported, other folks could have reported it that much earlier.
Yeah, is this your first lockdown?
No.
And on the other lockdown, how did that go?
I've had several, so
I mean, an actual lockdown.
I've had several.
Okay, I'm thinking of the one that occurred after school.
Correct, when we had somebody walking across campus.
Right. And how did that go?
That one was actually tougher. We didn't have a good communication system at the time. Our PA system didn't work very well, and that was after school, and we had people going in a lot of different directions at that time.
Right. Now, when the graffiti was shown, what time was that? When the graffiti was reported to the administration?
About
what time was that?
10:15, 10:20.
And then the superintendent made the call at 10:33?
Yes, 1033, 1034.
Is it normal for the superintendent to make the call on lockdown, or do we usually have the principal do that?
Members of the board, Mr. President, it depends on the situation. Each situation is unique. Sometimes police or school resource officer will advise the school or direct the school to lock down. When that doesn't happen, then it is a district decision. Sometimes the principal will make it, sometimes it will go to the assistant sup, and depending on the situation, it could come to me.
So at that time, you made the decision, not the principal, is that correct?
I did, yes.
And the principal, you were advising them to make a lockdown, or?
No, he was not. He was following direction, he was giving information and following direction.
Okay. And then the idea of soft lockdown was mentioned in some of the letters I saw. And just based on my years there, as you know, I've never heard that term used.
And that was, Mr. Freitas, Dr. Washington, members of the board. It's a term that we use when we're talking with some of our other staff, some of the district consultant staff and others. It's not one, yes, that we've used in some of our trainings. One of our members who was there, consultant staff, used that term, and because of that, it started getting used during some of our communications, and that's one of the things that we need to address.
So that's another case where your expertise of being on the site was overridden by somebody else using the terms that you didn't normally use in practice. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say it was overridden, Mr. Porter. I would say the term was used, and because of that, it caused a little bit of confusion, yes.
Well, I mean, obviously none of the teachers have practiced that, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
What are you trying to convey, if I can interrupt, with the term soft lockdown?
Again, and that's one of those things where we work with our safety consultant, the district safety consultant, Mr. Freitas. Soft lockdown, the idea behind that is there's an issue or something on a campus. It's probably going to be used when students are already in classes, not during a passing period. And maybe there's something that happened in the community over in the shopping center. But we got notice from the police that, hey, there could be somebody running through our campus or something, or towards our campus. There's not an immediate concern, but we just need everyone to stay indoors for a little bit. Classrooms can go along with their instruction. They do not have to turn off their lights. They do not have to hunker down someplace, close window blinds and that kind of stuff. They just need to lock all their doors and remain indoors, but business as usual can continue behind locked doors. That's a soft lockdown overall. A hard lockdown is we need lights off, drapes pulled, people away from doors, windows, and everything else, and that would be a hard lockdown.
And I guess then you were attempting to communicate some threat assessment level, or, I mean.
Yeah, in that sense, and that's what you would say a soft lockdown would be communicating, hey, there's a concern, but it's nothing that's necessarily immediate right here, right now. One of the challenges with something like a soft lockdown, and one of the things that we learned, if it's during a class time, you can get further information out and teachers and staff are familiar with the people who are in their classroom. If it's something that happened during a passing period and you have 45, 60 students in a location that maybe the staff doesn't know, they don't know who they are because they're not on a roll sheet or something like that for them, you can't continue class as normal because these are not students that would regularly be in your classroom.
And if you can convey a lower level of concern, anxiety, and maybe decreased panic, I mean, that's also very beneficial.
Correct.
We don't have to.
Well, I mean, my question then is, if you're going to use a term that was never used during practice, wouldn't it be best to shoot it over the email to the teachers? What your definition of soft lockdown was?
At that time, you mean? Yes.
Correct. Because it seems like they never, from what I read, it never was defined to them at all.
I wouldn't say that, but at that time, you mean it was not defined? No, we did not go giving them a definition at the time.
No, I would assume based on, memory, that math and English is impacted in terms of the classrooms, because they were closest to the cafeteria. Is that correct?
Yes,
They have
that
the
would
most
probably be
students.
general assessment, yes.
That makes sense. Now, my understanding is that there was a student that was identified, and he was not the individual that perpetrated the event?
No.
That did not happen?
No.
He was never brought in, his picture was never shot out to the teachers. Do we know this kid?
You, sorry, Mr. Porter, you said he was identified. Do you mean identified as somebody who had something involvement with this?
Correct.
We had several students that we wanted to speak with because we had belief that they'd been in the location and may have had an opportunity to do something. So we were trying to identify who those students were and in what rooms they might be in.
Right. Now, that one individual, didn't it end up on some type of social media?
I believe so. I don't know how or what or where because I don't do that social media.
Well, I think it's on what's called 209, which is known as a very active social media platform for things going on in Lodi. And that was picked up by the news as well, even though the kid or the child or the student wasn't. Now, how did that picture get circulated?
We don't know.
How did it get circulated to be looked at? Was it to the teachers or?
It was sent through an app where we use our Remind app to get information out to teachers because sometimes that's a better way to communicate.
Sure.
And we were trying to find out if anyone knew who that student was at the time.
What was the success of the app? Did 100% of the teachers receive it or?
I don't have a percentage, but I would say about 90%, 95% did. We had some who said they didn't get it, and yet we've had reminders every year on how to join the app and everything like that and encourage all of our teachers to do so.
Interesting. Now, I thought you guys did a very nice job, but on the other lockdowns that it usually was handled by site administration, at least the one that I was involved in.
Correct.
This is rare when you were superseded somewhat. Not superseded, but you had district personnel come up and help you, I guess, would say, so to speak.
Yes, Mr. Freitas, Mr. Porter, members of the board, Dr. Washer. I would say that any situation kind of governs what the response might be.
Right.
A prior one, if you recall, the one after school,
Yeah.
We had an individual and they actually had an object in their hand.
Right, I remember that.
We had a very immediate, what we believe could have been a very immediate threat. That's different than we don't have anything that may be immediate, and so there is some time to ask some questions.
I got you.
What's the best process? I can assure you that if there's lead flying around this school, I'm not going to be asking if I need to push a lockdown button or alarm. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm just...
So there's a difference between a prior one and the current one that we had more recently.
Yeah, and I can see where you're going with this, that the graffiti on the wall versus what turned out to be not a real gun but looked like one.
Correct.
You would act differently. But I just am somewhat concerned with, you're knowing the campus, you're the leader on the campus, you have your staff. Some of the authority should be resting with you at all times.
I agree, and I think I have that authority, and I do not think that authority was superseding. It was a conversation between me, my assistant superintendent, and the superintendent on the phone with what is our best practice do we think at this time.
So you would have called this at lunchtime then?
I was hoping to call it just before the bell rang.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, our timing and phone conversations, the bell rang first.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Right, and I think Mr. Everly alluded to it again. For us to Monday morning quarterback this, it's impossible. I mean, clock was ticking, you had 2,000 students and staff that were there on your campus, and you're making decisions with the best information you can and with the best intentions. And I think like Mr. Everly talked about, maybe looking back at it so we can be better prepared. I think that is really part of our goal and part of this discussion, just maybe asking questions so we all understand. And I've learned a lot already. Thank you, Mr. Porter, for your question. So, any other questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chris. First of all, thank all you guys for coming out here and spending this evening with us. You probably had better things to do, I would imagine. But thank you very much for that. Question is, have you spoken with Jerry Adams since this?
Many times.
Many times. Okay, so a report, because let's face it, I'm a military guy. If you had tanks there at Tokay, I could come out and take care of those for you, but something like this, I don't know anything about. So I would say that, Jerry should be here, or we should talk to Jerry, or if it's that delicate of a thing, it could be done in closed session, maybe we need to do that. Because we're really constrained here.
I think that's a good question.
That is going to happen.
That is going to happen.
Yes.
Mr.
We are-
Adams had
we
a
will set that up.
conflict tonight, so we have
Okay.
a choice
Mr. Adams
of
couldn't be here this evening.
either going forward with this or delaying it for Mr. Adams to be
So
here.
you feel comfortable with where we're at now?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
And I think one of the big things to further that, Mr. Neely and Mr. Freitas, the things that like Ms. Edwards again mentioned, with some of the stuff we're doing with our Say Something and things, we have other vehicles now to make sure that we are getting any concerns that are had, there's another vehicle and method for students and staff to report them and get information and get it, sometimes, I'll say after hours, before hours, other times of the day as well. And I think it's going to be a good vehicle that adds to our overall safety. And having that, our presentations that we just did with students with our Say Something process and everything else, following this incident that we had right before Thanksgiving, some people thought it was in response to what happened right before Thanksgiving. So we've been planning the Say Something stuff with Ms. Von Gier and everyone else for some time now. So the timing was good, but I think it had more impact on our campus just because of the recent incident we had. People realized, hey, this kind of stuff, paying attention to your environment and taking some ownership is important. And I think our students responded to that.
Good deal.
I like to, the schools are a reflection of the society. So I don't want this to paint a picture of Tokay or Lodi or McNair or Bear Creek. We are a part of the community. What happens at Tokay is a part of the Lodi community. So this is not a reflection of people that work there and what goes on. We have to take precautions at the schools based on what is happening in the society. And it's sad that you people have to be up here and going through all this, but unfortunately it's also the times. And not everything's going to be done correctly, perfectly. But I thought that overall we got a lot of great information out of this. I think our safety committee moved forward. I think we have people now that experience something that can help us with it. But also, the community has to be aware of, you're just as responsible, because this is nothing more than a small city within the town.
Good point.
Okay?
And Mr.
Thank you for being here, by the way.
Yes, sir.
And one thing to address that Mr. Heberly mentioned, I know in his former profession there, as we did even when we had tuberculosis things and we had to deal with county health officials and things like that. And anything like this, and we did it with Mr. Adams, we did it with our staff, we did it with our admin staff and other folks. We do what we call a hot wash. We've got that term from the county office. But anytime we have a major incident of any kind, we debrief it as soon afterward as we can. And then we debrief that again another week or so after. Okay, what else have we learned as we got more feedback from stakeholders or people involved in everything else? We met that afternoon. We met with the staff that afternoon. We met with Jerry Adams Monday or Tuesday, right after we came back from Thanksgiving. And so we've done our hot wash several times over to say, okay, what else and what other things have we learned in the ensuing 3 days, 3 weeks, whatever it's been. We just talked about this again yesterday, yesterday, Monday at our admin team meeting. So we keep reflecting and everything on it. We do it promptly when we have any type of incident for that exact reason, as you mentioned, because there's things that, hey, there's something we need to make sure we address and we don't want to forget about it, or something that went well and we want to make sure we build on that.
And to build on that, fortunately, we have a Tokay High School student here in the room tonight who can maybe give us a student's perspective on this. Tia, you were there that day?
Yes, I was. Thank you, Vice President Freitas, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I just personally want to say that I felt immediately safe as soon as I saw, because this picture of the graffiti was going around on social media. I was immediately informed about it for one, and surprisingly, like 3 seconds later on the intercom we hear, please get to your classrooms. It was very immediate, and for the almost 2 hours that I was in the class, safe and sound, I felt really safe. I wasn't super freaked out. The teacher that I was with, Mr. Johnson, was super, calm about it, and I think it was handled very well.
Where were you when you got the information?
I was in my second or third period class, like the beginning of fourth, I believe it was, and my friend had showed me, and we were about to go tell the teacher, but somebody else had beat us to it. But I was inside the classroom luckily already, but I know that a lot of kids streamed in extremely fast after that.
And then, how'd you feel? Did you get scared? What were your feelings through this?
Personally, for me, it felt unreal because, you know, something like that hasn't happened to me the 3 years that I've been at Tokay. So it was kind of crazy that, you know, something like that had occurred. And it was just sad that, because it was a realization that in our society today, or in this country, we have to worry about that as students and just as schools in general. But I wasn't too scared because I knew that I was safe in my classroom, and I really appreciated that everything was handled extremely quickly, and it happened. It didn't feel like 3 minutes; it felt like 3 seconds to me. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And the students that were with you, how did they feel?
Luckily, a lot of the kids that I was with, they weren't too rowdy. We try not to build it up too much, especially the teacher was trying to calm us down. Like, we didn't, you know, hear anything. We tried, you know, social media stirs stuff up, but the teacher was really good about keeping us calm and just keeping us collected, and everybody was pretty calm in my classroom.
Very good. Daniel, have you ever had a lockdown that you've experienced at Lodi Unified?
I believe I have.
Yeah.
I think I've had one in elementary school and then one as well in high school.
How'd that go?
Both of the times, they were both pretty scary, but unfortunately I wasn't super informed on the actual event that was happening. But I did, with all of the procedures that happened, I did feel very safe after teachers informed us of what was happening and everything else.
Very good. All right. Any other comments or?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, students, for those comments. And further comments from the board, Mr. Everly?
I'll hold my comments.
Okay.
I just a quick one. I
Mr.
think that we'd be negligent if we didn't diligently plan for this type of an emergency. And as it turned out, this real world experience is an opportunity for us to build upon it. And from what I've heard tonight, it's exactly what's happening. And I congratulate all of you for the work that you've done, and hopefully keep it up and learn from this and make everything even better.
Very good. Other comments from the board?
Mr. Frakes, one other thing, if I could add in there for, this, as we're planning, because I go back to Ms. McFarland's question, you know, we need to look at some of the things that we need to improve on or whatever else. And again, when we talked, when we debriefed some of this with our staff, was with our M&O staff, with Jerry Adams, with Mr. Kahn. But one of the things, going back to Mr. Porter's question as well, what kinds of trainings and things do we include? One of the things that I'll say gloss over, we go over our trainings, what do we do and everything else, but what do we have in our classroom is the one thing that we kind of realized we'd left out. Our emergency supplies that we have in our classroom, and literally our emergency bucket, which was used, the emergency bucket, the bucket with a toilet seat on it, but also with some first aid supplies and things that are stored in the bucket and things like that. Those were used in 6 classrooms. And you know, that's not something that somebody wants to have to do, but we also realized we had some new staff who didn't know that they had that in their classroom, because that's one area that, okay, we weren't talking about so often enough, was our emergency supplies that are actually in every single classroom. And so there's those things that we need to make sure, and believe me, that's a big note for us. What do we do with that? How do we handle that? How do we make sure staff know what's in there and what they have within their own classroom or office settings and things like that? So there's other things that we need to make sure we address. So I would like to say, you know, it's a fortunate outcome that we had something that was an emergency and a significant situation, but it wasn't worse than it was, and we were able to learn from that without any significant fallout, I guess I would say.
All right. Some other comments, Michelle?
Well, I like the ask for the positive, and I can running up, because that is the one thing that I did hear from members about the communication and the quickness that the communication went out to some of the staff and also to the public. Social media, it went fast. I was notified like simultaneously from Chelsea at the same time that members are saying, did you see this posted on social media? So it was very quick, and what was stated was clear, concise, and not elaborate. And I think that immediate send out was a great positive, because unfortunately we all walk around with one of these in our hip pocket, and as you know, just standing here getting 3 messages, so both on social media and texting. So it is very quick that someone sends out those messages, and it just takes off like wildfire. And so to have the messages that Chelsea sent out and stating what they said was great. We would like to see those messages, and she and I have talked briefly about this, kind of go out to not just that site, and without going into detail. And I've spoken to a couple of board members about the safety, that we do have some great feedback that we got that is specific, and certainly do not want to share it in this forum, to help with any next events, and how do we warn, foresee, and educate and communicate with everybody those things. Mr. Porter, I'm so glad you didn't know what a soft lockdown is. That just means that you haven't had to bear through it. We have, as an elementary teacher, I can tell you that on probably an annual basis for my last 10 years of teaching, we had numerous soft lockdowns. So we did, that term is well versed to me. I look forward, as we have a safety meeting, a district safety meeting this week, look forward to communicating some of the things that have been asked about training. My teachers have been calling district-wide. We, as I think one of the bullets about next steps, instead of doing half of the schools each year, doing all of the schools, because as Mr. Oh my goodness, Sandstrom pointed out, with new teachers subs coming in our campuses annually, making sure that we have that training right off the bat, so that they are aware of all of those procedures, and we get them educated right away. So we are glad to see 100% done, and look forward to sharing some of those specific comments later. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for those comments. And you bring up a good point, that the district's social media posts are a much more credible one than the rumors and innuendos that were being circulated through the students amongst themselves. And I think by us being able to put out a credible post with the best information possible, we can alleviate fears and communicate effectively with parents and students. So, and this is what misinformation is, something that we're going to have to be combating with and working with at all points. So, very nice.
Mr. Freitas?
Yes, Mr. Pinack said.
Michelle mentioned something that I think we need, that's all right, and that's substitutes. And I assume there is some training for substitutes when they take on the jobs of a substitute?
There will be.
Okay.
First time I heard about it.
I mean,
I think it's obviously an idea to give them some sort of, we won't be able to give it specific to every second district, but certainly some general.
Because obviously they're going to be substitutes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
And I can share with you, Mr. Connexter, that I know with our substitutes, In their subfolder that they pick them, right, very first thing on the inside cover is what our emergency procedures are in a bullet listed form for fire drills, evacuation, or lockdown, shelter-in-place type of thing. And anytime we have a new sub who's never been to our school site, I know our secretary, as she is handing the folder, points it out, and here's our emergency procedures and everything else. It doesn't mean they're going through our training drills and stuff, because they might not be there on the day we're doing a drill.
Yeah,
But we
that was
make
my
sure every
next thing.
substitute is aware of what those procedures are, at least in a written form.
My next thing would be, that secretary would be key in making sure that was done.
I just have one final thing. Was this done verbally? Lockdown? Did you go over the PA verbally and do it?
Yes.
It wasn't done through your jive system?
The PA is part of the jive system. The jive system is the PA system, the phone system, the bell
But
system.
you did it verbally, we were locking down.
Correct.
And has that ever been practiced?
Yes, when we practiced it on September, this is our first year because it's a new system for us. When we did our lockdown practice on September 14th or 18th, whatever that was, we did it as a verbal, that's how we give our direction over the PA system, yes.
Well, I have other questions, but I think.
Thank you.
Save those for the committee.
Any other comments from the board? Dr. Washer?
I just wanted to, the reason I waited, I kind of wanted to see how the discussion went. And one of the things I was going to bring up is, we talked about, obviously, at first, what went well, and then, in a broad category, what didn't. And I think you're hitting on that, too, was a good thing. And Mr. Connect said, that was the next thing on my bullet point was, what do we do for the new teachers? What do we do for the new people on campus, substitutes and so forth? And then all that tells us is, in a larger sense, is that we need to make sure that all the schools are doing that same thing. That's our responsibility. You're doing it at your school, but we just need to make sure everybody else is doing it. That would be an example of a best practice. And those are the kinds of things that the safety group is trying to note so that we can, in fact, get that. Maybe school Y has a great idea. Never thought of that. Well, if we don't talk about it, we're not going to learn it. So, I don't want anybody to think that this is the end all, because unfortunately things like this will probably continue in different severity and different forms. But I'm a huge proponent of training, and there's a lot of different ways of training, whether it's the first 5 minutes of a staff meeting or whether you just read over one little thing just to kind of keep everybody's mind thinking about it, because you will behave how you train. And in our profession, training is survival. Simple as that. So this is a great start for the conversation. I think it lets everybody know that, yeah, we're doggone serious about this. We want to develop the best responses that we can to whatever situation comes to us. So I want to thank you all for coming. And we still have work to do that information will come.
And I'll tell you, one of the other things we learned, Mr. Everly, was also that it's not just our substitutes or new teachers, new staff. I can tell you on a daily basis, we have more new students on our campus throughout the year. And maybe they're not there on the day we do our training in September, because we had a whole bunch of new students come late September or after the October break or whatever. So looking at how frequently we do our things, but also we have more new students coming on our campus throughout any month than maybe new teachers, new staff, substitutes. And how do we keep them involved and up to date, if you will, when our student training was the prior month or something like that. So we have to look at what we do as well.
Dr. Wise? Mr. Farley?
Real quick, when we were at our CSBA training, the 1st of December, I sat in on a lecture on a lockdown drill that went awry. And it was an active shooter, and it was on a small school district, and the superintendent and I'll say the posse, took us through what happened, what they did right, what they did wrong, and I sat through the whole thing thinking, you have 6 or 7 schools in your school district. I listened to the whole thing. It was amazing what they did and the transformation that they made on their campuses and how they they kind of gave through what went wrong and where they really kind of, muffed it, and then where they changed what they did, but there was 7 schools, and I think I've shared it with several of them. They had some amazing things they did, but again, it was 7 schools in their district. And so when this happened, I thought, wow, how do you do it? How are we gonna apply some of those practices into this magnitude of a school? So I'm anxious to see what our safety committee can come up with. And it was interesting seeing it from another perspective, and now we're doing it. So commend you and thank you.
Very good.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
may I just say thank goodness that Lodi Unified had something like this occur where we had the opportunity to learn
Absolutely.
before anybody got hurt.
Absolutely.
Given the number of people over the last 20 years that have gotten seriously hurt or killed. This is amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Let me piggyback on that if I could. I'm reading about the Parkland shooting in Florida. And the very first thing that you mentioned about is that some kids saw it and didn't report it, but some kids did. The difference here is that administration did something about it. Parkland, they had years and years of the shooter in their district, and they knew about him. There were policies and agreements and whatever that didn't go well at all. So when we talk about it, I hear what we're doing, and I'm going, at least we didn't do what they did. I mean, yeah. So, but what that tells me is reading that keys me into some things that we need to talk about, that we need to do. We're doing a lot of them already, which is great. Like I said, we just have to keep it in everybody's forefront of their mind, and we'll keep going at it for sure.
Thank you. Dr. Washer.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas, members of the board. I just wanted to wrap up and just acknowledge the quick response and effective response from Mr. Sandstrom and all the administrators at the school. They did a fantastic job in a very difficult and challenging situation from a direction that came from outside of the school. So I want to thank them and acknowledge them for that. And in the end, everybody was safe and there was an arrest made. And that is a huge, huge accomplishment in this situation. And we will always err on the side of caution.
Thank you, Dr. Washer, and those are great words. And Mr. McKilligan, you took the words exactly out of my mouth. It's very nice that we have the luxury that we can talk about this in this type of environment, especially in view of how unfortunate certain communities are, certain schools, certain public forums. So, but we are Lodi. We are Lodi Unified. We do care about this. We do want the absolute best for this. And if we did it right, then, let's get it out there. If we can make changes to make it better, then that's what we want to accomplish. And we didn't run from what we did wrong, and we acknowledged what we did right. And that was the whole point of this transparency, of creating an opportunity for us to fully vet this and discuss this. And we greatly appreciate you, Mr. Sandstrom. It's a shame that your staff didn't get a chance to talk. So, but anyhow, the board greatly appreciates.
They like to talk, Mr. Freitas. Would you like to go?
That's what we're afraid of.
We got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
We'll contribute to the safety committee.
Oh, they talk. We hear. Very nice. So, anyway.
We will continue, of course.
Yes. We greatly appreciate it, and that you guys, of course, the term comes to mind, I want to say that you hotboxed it. You did hotbox it, you hot washed it.
Hot wash.
Yeah, well, that's a different term for something else.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but you hot washed it, but you all spent a great deal of time replaying it and going over it in your living room for improvement. And we commend you for that, in addition to keeping our kids safe like you do every single day. And we greatly appreciate the culture and the community that you have there at Tokay. I know my kids have greatly enjoyed it, and thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. And With that,
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
we have board advisory committee reports. Any, seeing none? The chair will set the motion.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you all. Good night. Very nice. Thank you for staying.